You are watching or listening to Purham and Associates. For more information, go to rpurham.com or follow me on all social media platforms and subscribe at RPURHAM. Thanks. See you over there. Hey, good day to you all. Welcome to Purham and Associates. I'm your host, Randy Purham, and I'm not going to say happy 9/11, because can't have a happy 9/11, but it's 9/11, September 11th. It's the day we remember the tragic events that happened on this day. It's like 26 years ago. Wow, it's been a long time, 25 years ago. And so we're going to talk about that today, but I want to know, where were you at and what were you doing on 9/11? But while you're thinking about that and trying to remember, we got a very special guest with us today, Jeff Dornik, and we'll get right into it. He's the founder and CEO of Pickax and is the host of the Jeff Dornik Show, where he's interviewed prominent voices like Senator Ron Johnson, Dr. Pierre Corey, Kash Patel, General Michael Flynn, Lauren Boebert, Jason Miller, and many more. He's also a co-hosting and bold new weekly show with Matt Couch called Unsanctioned. An author and editor, Jeff published and co-authored Church and State, How the Left Used the Church to Conquer America, and Social Justice, Exposing the False Gospel of the Social Justice Movement. His forthcoming book, Following the Leader, is currently available for pre-order. Jeff is a frequent speaker at national events, including the Reawaken America Tour at Trump Doral, the Summit for Truth in Wellness, and the Stand Against Marxism Conference, and the #WalkAway America Restoration Tour in Beverly Hills, where he served as MC. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the summit, presenting to others, Mr. Jeff Dornik. Morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
Doing well. Despite, the craziness that's been going on yesterday with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and then today, of course, being 9/11, it's just been like my phone has been nonstop, and it's just been like madness. But everything, for the most part, this is the society we are in. I guess I hate to put it that way, but this is where we at in life, and I just hope that his family is going to be okay, and we catch the killer, and where the killer is caught, and there's swift justice that comes with that. But Jeff, I see you do a show with Matt Couch. I used to hang out with Matt Couch back in the day, a few years back here up in the Dallas area. I'm down here in Texas, Austin, Texas. So that's small world, and fellow podcasters such as yourself. Tell us about your podcast, sir.
Yeah, definitely. So actually, I've been hosting the Jeff Dornik Show for several years, and just kind of picking people's brains, asking people questions that I want to ask. It's totally unscripted, all that kind of stuff. Matt and I kind of started a show, and we're going to revamp it here shortly, just because we've taken a little bit of a hiatus for a number of reasons. But that's called Unsanctioned, and that one we just kind of have completely off-the-wall conversations. So, like, one week we may talk about politics. We one of our last episodes that we had, we interviewed the head of all events at the Disney Corporation, so that was kind of fun to kind of pick his brain on things. And he's a Christian conservative guy that basically runs all the events and all the red carpets for Disney, which is, again, really interesting conversation there. So we kind of have all these different random conversations with that. But it's like, for me, I feel like I'm in it, and I've been focusing on this, and I think it's really coming to a head now after what happened with Charlie Kirk yesterday. is, the thing that Charlie has always said at all of his events is that we need more conversations with people that we disagree with, because as soon as the two sides stop talking, that's when violence happens, and we see what happened to him, yesterday, because we're seeing that the left is refusing to have conversations and treat people like human beings, and instead they're dehumanizing everybody, which makes it much easier to basically wish harm and violence and death on people. And so, like, for me, I'm looking at this from the perspective of, okay, how do we even have more conversations with people that we disagree with, which then, and again, I'm not saying this is like self-promotion or anything like that, but which is, for me, I run Pickax, which is a social media platform, and I'm trying to figure out how do we facilitate social media in an era where, like, the algorithms right now, they pit us against each other. Everybody's rage posting and trying to get engagement and trashing each other. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do we kind of bring that mentality that Charlie had with these college events and bring it into this social media era where we can actually have conversations rationally online that we literally can't have on all these other platforms.
You're absolutely right, and it's unfortunate. I was got this morning and even yesterday, right as things happen, I'm responding to messages and reacting to commentary, and there is a lot of vitriol out there, unfortunately, and it kind of drags you down to that level of wanting to engage them negatively. We just say, you know what, I'm just gonna walk away. I can't have a conversation with you, obviously. Type of thing. And I think that's where we're actually getting to in society right now, is that when you see somebody that is diametrically opposed to you and your views, you may want to have a genuine conversation with them, but if they're unwilling to, you're settled with, okay, I'm not going to force a conversation because it may actually devolve into something, much worse. So we tend to just just get into our silos and we just keep it moving. Which is unfortunate, because I love to debate with people. I love to have conversations, just like Charlie did. Very open with, hey, ask me anything. We can talk about it. Whatever the case is. I'm here in Austin, Texas. Somebody said the other day, they said a red cherry in a blueberry patch or something like that. I just laughed. I said, yeah, that's a good analogy there. And it's true, but it's unfortunate at the same time that we can't get on social media, and you get into your, not so much an echo chamber, but you get into an echo chamber and you're engaging and trying to talk to people, and if somebody else comes along and says something that was totally off base, totally just like crazy, you're like, okay, I'm going to engage this person, but then you see this person in real life and they just totally avoid you because they know, like, oh, I might have to get into a fight today because of what I said on social media. And we shouldn't have to be like that. We shouldn't, feel like, once you step outside your door that you're going to engage into combat. I've been there, done that, and it's not something that, that's fun to do. But I'm glad you mentioned your social media platform, Pickax. It's in kind of like a pre-launch, if I'm not mistaken. So tell us about Pickax and how that's going to shape the social media world.
Yeah, definitely. So Pickax, you guys can actually go there right now. It's pickax.com. We have the web-based version is out right now. And we're going to be dropping the app here in the next couple of weeks. So we're in the final phases of beta testing, and for both iOS and Android. So it's been a long time coming. But I think one of the really cool things that I think we've built with our early adopters of the platform has been kind of what we're talking about is being willing to have conversations and discussions and debate. And I think a lot of it is because we've really leaned heavily into the more of the long form content. So yeah, you can go on there and you can post like a standard social media tweet, post, whatever you want to call it. But you can also write full articles directly within the platform. We do full Rumble integration to where if you post a Rumble video onto Pickax, it's playable in the news feed as if native to the platform. We also have a beta feature that we've rolled out that a lot of people are using right now, and they're super excited about it, which is your ability to connect your Rumble channel to your Pickax account, and to where it'll automatically post anytime you go live or post a new video on there. And so for me, one of the really cool things that we've seen is like we've got some strong, Trump supporters. We've got Ann Vandersteel and Matt Couch and Chad Caton and all J.R. Majewski and Red Pill 78 and all these guys that are over there. And then we've got, some like independents and people from like the medical freedom crowd. We've got Children's Health Defense on there, the Vigilant Fox, people like that. And then we even have some lefties on there. Ted Rall is on there. And Ted, for people that don't know, Ted is a lifelong leftist columnist and political cartoonist who was actually depersoned by ChatGPT, which is wild and bonkers when you hear his story. And so he's come over, and I've had him on my show, and I've gone on his show a few times, and like we strongly disagree on a whole host of things, everything from politics to Israel to Trump or whatever it is. But we're super respectful, and we like each other, and he's super cool, and I feel like we hit it off. We need more of those kinds of conversations and discussions and debates where we can focus on the issues. And I think really, and this is again something I've been thinking about a lot over the last 24 hours, is I think a lot of times both sides of the aisle, we inflame the situation with our rhetoric and the way that we talk, and we make things personal, and we insult each other. We try to own the other side, as opposed to having an honest and fair discussion and debate. Because the thing that I've realized over the years and talking to a lot of, and again, you said you live in Texas. I live in communist California, so I'm surrounded by everywhere I go, right? But the thing is that when you actually sit down and talk to people, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. I would argue the vast majority of Americans are truly agree on the vast majority of the issues. It's just the wedge issues that the two political parties pit us against each other that we're constantly fighting. Like for example, like let's just say you take a hot button issue like abortion, right? The vast majority of Americans agree you shouldn't abort a baby in the last trimester, right? And I would argue more than 51% of Americans would agree that you don't abort a baby in the second trimester outside of medical extremities and things like that. Why don't we just pass those bans? If we could just pass those bans across the country, blanket bans, the vast majority of Americans can get on board with that. The problem is that what the powers that be do is they don't allow us to have that conversation about those last two trimesters. What they force the conversation on is conception. So while we're allowing all these babies to die and get murdered in the two other trimesters, we're focusing on conception, and then thus we get nothing done because we can never get consensus. And so for me, I'm like, okay, how can we start the conversation on things that we agree on? Let's get that done, and then we'll slowly move towards the things where we have disagreement, and then let's duke it out, let's debate, but focus on the issues as opposed to the personal insults that I think politics often devolves into.
Yeah, most definitely, and I totally agree. Talking with a lot of lefties and even like fringe extreme lefts, even extreme fringe rights. I'm kind of like I'm pretty down the center. On a lot of these social issues. Anyways, I'm pretty down the center. People say, what kind of conservative are you? And that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that, because I'm a constitutional conservative. So now, if you understand the Constitution and how the Constitution works, then a lot of things don't comport to what the right espouses as conservatism. And a lot of people don't get that. They don't understand that nuance. And I'm like, if you're so much about freedom, then what you're talking about isn't exactly, freedom. That's actually control. And they're like, I'm a conservative. It's like, okay, you're a conservative in that regard, but you're not a constitutional conservative. And so I even have these battles within the right side, and it goes into, just like the left, and it looks like, ooh, I'm gonna steal that argument to push my agenda. And it's like, that's perfectly fine, because I actually agree with you that, if we believe in freedom, then we should have the freedom to do what it is that we want to do. That's the whole definition of freedom. Hello. So you go into those rabbit holes, and then it turns into, well, you're not actually a Republican, you're not actually a conservative, you're not actually a liberal, you're not actually a Democrat, you're not actually a libertarian, and everything else. And it's like, unless you actually peel back every issue and then categorize that issue as to what side of the political spectrum it falls under, you can't technically label anyone as anything, because we all would disagree or agree depending on what the issue is, where that issue lies, and you will find yourself swaying back and forth on the political spectrum, depending on what the issue is and your viewpoint of it. Just like you mentioned about the abortion, I totally agree with you there. And a lot of people will say, "Well, that's not pro-life." It is. It's just you're not advocating to kill a baby at all. So therefore, you are pro-life. There are exceptions. There are reasons, and so I totally agree with you. And it's amazing how your social media platform is allowing for free speech, and then you have X, you have Twitter, you have True Social. Facebook. You have True Social. You have I'm not sure where the hell Parler is. and they're kind of like a come and go. But then you have let's see what else. There's the other one. It kind of came out around.
So like there's Gab, there's Clout Hub, there's MeWe, there's Minds, there's all. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So tell us. Congratulations on launching this, the platform, by the way. But tell us how you compare to the rest of the other platforms when it comes to allowing for free speech.
Yeah, so it's so when you're looking at free speech, a lot of the platforms that claim to be free speech technically aren't. They moderate content in one way or another. So when you look at like Twitter, right? Twitter becomes X. Elon becomes the new champion for free speech. But is that really true? Because when you look at the terms of service, there's a phrase in there, and I believe it's still there. Where they have a policy called that on X you have freedom of speech but not freedom of reach, which means that they'll allow you to say whatever you want, but that doesn't actually mean that they have to let anybody see it. So is that really free speech if you're artificially limiting people's ability to be seen? When you go back to the foundation of this country, when we first implemented the First Amendment, you have to think about it from the perspective of the founding fathers when they wrote it. What were they actually meaning? And so you had two different parts of free speech. You had freedom of speech and you had freedom of the press. Freedom of speech is, was at the time where you could just go down to your local town square and you could say whatever you want without restriction. Like you spout your opinion. You don't call for somebody to die or be killed. You don't call for violence, but you're spouting your opinion. Go for it. We're not going to restrict you at all. Freedom of the press was not this you're like a professional journalist where you went to school and got credentialed and all that kind of stuff. Freedom of the press was literally you can write out your grievances on a piece of paper, go down to your local printing and have them print out some pamphlets, and then you can go down to your town square and distribute them freely without restriction. Essentially the modern day version of a blog or an article or a tweet or something like that. So that was freedom of the press. But the key was without restriction. Like the equivalent of having a policy like freedom of speech but not freedom of reach would be like the government saying, okay, cool, you can write out whatever you want on your freedom of the press pamphlet, but we're only going to let you print 10 copies, and then that's it. Sorry, nobody would, everybody would be like, that's ridiculous. What are you talking about? But that's what they're doing on X. You look at True Social. They're messing with people with the algorithms. When they first came out, they contracted with a Silicon Valley artificial intelligence company and actually to do their content moderation, which actually led to somebody like Dr. Tenpenny getting suspended off the platform for a period of time. So when you look at a lot of these other platforms, they claim freedom of speech, but do they really mean it? I remember with Getter, when Getter was getting big, that I got kicked off of Twitter for a variety of reasons, and then went over to Getter, and Getter became my primary social media. And I interviewed Jason Miller several times on my show promoting the platform and all that. But I remember and this was the last time I interviewed him, I basically got him to admit that it wasn't a free speech platform. It was a political free speech platform. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it means they'll let you say your political beliefs, but if it's outside of politics, it's fair game to kind of censor. So this is kind of the problem, is that, for me, and the way that we've set up Pickax is, there's a variety of components when it comes to freedom of speech. One of them is that we're committed to the Constitution. So as long as it's legal speech, we're going to allow it, with the one exception of we don't allow pornography, sex, nudity, things like that on the platform. And everybody's like, well, can you be a free speech platform if you don't allow porn on the platform? Well, okay, so let's go back to the original foundation of this country. If you're talking about your town square, you weren't allowed to go into the middle of your town square, take off all your clothes, and have sex in the middle of the town square and claim free speech. You can't arrest me. No, they would throw you in prison immediately. So, I'm not going to let you do it on my digital town square, right? So we're committed to the Constitution, right? But then you start getting into the algorithms, because the algorithms is a way that suppresses speech. So we've basically eliminated the algorithms to where we have a chronological feed, with the one exception that when there's more engagement or more comments, or there's a conversation happening on a post, it'll just get bumped back up to the top of the feed and then chronologically go down. To me, it's like you're earning a following, and they should be allowed to see it without me getting in the way as a platform between you and your audience. And so everything we're doing is trying to bridge that gap between you and the audience that you've earned, whether it's in the news feed and giving you direct access. We're rolling out an email newsletter component very similar to Substack that'll be built into the platform. Again, more direct access to your audience. We're going to be developing some more features to integrate with Rumble even more effectively, to where you can have more conversations, maybe a live chat, different things like that, to where, again, you can have direct access to your audience in ways that you can't on other platforms because of the way the algorithms are set up.
Yeah, and that's awesome, and I appreciate that, and appreciate what you're doing with that, because you hit some key components there. It's free speech in a sense of allowing content to be shown, shared, and seen by people without restriction. And you're right. The other platforms, they say that, and then as soon as you post something that's totally out there, and nothing violent, but just something like just totally crazy, you'll see that there is no engagement whatsoever. Yeah, and I do it intentionally sometimes, just to see like what would trigger a response type of thing, and I see that no one's touched that post. And I'm like, that's odd. I would post something like, your mother stinks when she, bathes type of thing. And it's like, it goes nowhere. It's like, not even a like, not even a laugh or nothing. It's just like, okay, I'm being suppressed. and it's crazy. It's crazy to me that people actually invest the time and the energy into identifying ways to suppress other people in the conversation sphere, in the conversation space. And for Pickax, because I actually looked at the website and everything, and I actually created an account there, so I'll be engaging on there, and you'll probably see some of my crazy stuff fly across there. You were like, okay, yeah, I wonder how that's going to turn out. but with that though, with Pickaxe, the Rumble integration, I think that's a fantastic idea, because I utilize Rumble for this show and everything else. You're having email integration. How would that play out in terms of the service providers of Rumble and the email, service provider, and their, I guess you could say, integration of their algorithms into Pickaxe, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. So it's interesting because we've figured out ways to do things with the Rumble integration that nobody else is doing, right? So as far as I know, we're going to be the only social media platform that actually has Rumble videos playing in the news feed on an app. So True Social, you can do it on the website version. They have it to where it'll auto-populate and play in the news feed. But we're the only one that where the Rumble videos will actually play in the app. So whether you're watching a Rumble video in the app or on the website, it's playable in the news feed, again, as if native to the platform. I've talked with the guys over at Rumble and some of the guys in the dev teams and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I just want you to know, this is what we're doing. We're not messing. We're like, we don't mess with anything with like APIs or doing anything weird. And they're like, oh no, we love what you're doing, because what's happening is it's getting Rumble more views. It's getting and we've also set it up to where the Rumble ads are playing in the videos, so it gets them more monetized content. And on top of that, they have their new live read feature where podcasters and live streamers on Rumble can now do their live reads, and which is again getting them more eyeballs, more money, more all that kind of stuff. So they're totally happy with it from that perspective. There was an account that's already on Pickaxe called Mastering Rumble, and they do a lot of like training on helping creators to be able to thrive using the Rumble integration. And so they did a test, and again, they have a smaller account, but they're really smart and they know what they're doing. And they did this test where they posted one of their videos onto Pickaxe, And then they looked at the analytics on Rumble, and they actually saw that and this was an old video, so it's not like, you know, the numbers will be kind of construed. They figured out that just by posting on Pickaxe with our limited number of users, because again, we're still technically in pre-launch because we haven't even launched you know, the apps yet, yeah. and they had an extra 700 monetized views just by posting on that one video on the Pickaxe. And you know, so like a lot of times if you post onto like other you know, websites or whatever it is, it may or may not be a monetized view. So you as a content creator may or may not be generating revenue. You may get views, right, but you're not necessarily generating revenue. So they actually had like 700 additional monetized views on their video just by posting it onto Pickaxe. And it's not like they have that many followers on there, but because of engagement and sharing and, you know, trending and all that kind of stuff, they can take advantage of the platform. And I think that, and so we're getting a ton of Rumble creators that are coming over specifically for that reason. And the gaming community is huge on Pickaxe right now because a lot of these gamers, like, I can't promote my shows anywhere else because you know, we're Rumble gamers. We love the Rumble platform, but we get dinged if we promote the Rumble video on X or Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is. But coming over to Pickaxe, now they can post the Rumble video, and it's not only is it not dinged, it's promote, and they're getting views just by posting it on there. So that's really cool. Then you know, we're building out our own email newsletter component, you know, building out our own infrastructure. Everything we do is pretty much from scratch. And so I'm actually beta testing the early features of that right now, and it's really cool. It's gonna be really, really effective and help a lot of people. But again, it's something that like we control. We build it so we can kind of set our own parameters. We can set our own rules. We can, you know, do all that kind of stuff. And so it's really interesting diving into this because the way that I've looked at all the features that we develop is from the perspective of a content creator. So, you know, because I've had a show for years. I've written articles. I've, you know, done the whole deal. And it's like, okay, so what do I want in a social media platform as a creator? And then I go to my phenomenal dev team, and I'm like, okay, so this is what I'd like. Can we build this? And we're like, yeah. And you know, this was a very specific thing, and it cost us more money and spent more time building it from scratch. But we built everything completely from scratch. If you look at a lot of the other platforms, they're built on like an open source framework or some sort of like white label framework to where they're kind of going to be limited to a certain degree in the features that they can develop. What we've done with Pickaxe is everything is built completely from scratch, so we can actually do whatever we want with it. So if I want to do it, fill in the blank, we can basically do it because we've set it up to where we can take this in any number of directions, and we've got complete control over the platform.
Sure, that's awesome. You know that sounds like a lot of work. I say that, but you know that's great. I want to let's transition just slightly, not even off of that, but I want to get into the AI component here. And you know, with the AI, I call it the AI takeover because now when I open up my phone, I can't get away from AI. Everything is generated with AI. You can't tell what, like, even with the videos that were circulating yesterday with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, they was like, oh, that part is AI generated. It's like, why the hell did you have to use AI to generate any part of that? It's like, let it have been just organic, natural video. Like, why do we have to integrate AI for that? It was like, it pissed me off yesterday, actually. But aside from that, you got companies that are incorporating AI into their business model, and a lot of people are losing their jobs because now you can have one person do, you know, incorporate AI into whatever space that they're doing, and that eliminates 5-10 people's jobs, you know, type of thing. So I want to get your thoughts on how that's going to affect, you know, our economy going forward in terms of AI taking over and the job space. Now we're going to have a whole bunch of jobless people running around trying to do AI to be relevant again, I guess. So I want to get your thoughts on that, sir.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I think everybody the thing is that everybody is very short-sighted when it comes to technology and when it comes to AI, in the sense that they think that, okay, the way it is right now is the way it'll always be. So yeah, AI takes over, but I just have to learn how to use ChatGPT or whatever it is, and then I'll still have a job. Well, if you listen to the guys developing this technology, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, Bill Gates, fill in the blank, What are they all saying? They're all just saying that basically, no, in the next 10 years, AI and robots are going to replace everybody's jobs. Like, they're like, there's going to be no more need for human beings to be in the workforce. Like, this is the developers of the artificial intelligence technology is saying, yes, we're going to replace all of your jobs. And people still think, oh yeah, no, this is a cool thing. This is cool technology. I can always use this. No, they're coming for you. You go back to the Tesla announcement of the robotaxi that was several months ago. That big event. They also rolled out. They also brought out the Optimus robots. The Optimus robots were the waiters, the waitresses, the bartenders at this event. And they showed this promo video that I thought was really terrifying, where literally they're showing Optimus robots as babysitters to your kids, as your teachers, as your doctor, as your attorney, as the fill in the blank. AI and robots and these Optimus robots are going to take those jobs, and I'm just sitting here. I'm like, well, my kid's never going to be babysitted by a robot. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. But you look at like the end game. Elon Musk has said there's going to be more than 1 billion of these Optimus robots on the planet in the next several years. They're just going to be going around as if they're human, or walking around. You're just sitting here like, this is bonkers. This is nuts. You look at what he's doing with artificial intelligence when it comes to like things like Neuralink, where they have like a brain chip, attach your brain to the internet. Well, it just hint, anything that's connected to the internet is hackable. And he's already said that this technology will have the ability to erase your memories and replace them with new ones. He said this on his first interview with Joe Rogan.
I remember that.
So if they'll have the ability to erase memories, replace them with new ones, imagine the kind of power that somebody could have if they, let's say, hack your brain. They can change a memory and you wouldn't even know it because it was erased. Like you have no way of knowing. Like, to me, it sounds like a crazy sci-fi movie, but this is real life. Real life. So you look at Yuval Noah Harari has said that basically with all of this technology, we're no longer going to have free will because they can control you from within, from the inside, not just through propaganda, but through this technology. And so you're looking at this and you're just like, okay, what the heck is going on, and why aren't people getting really upset about this? And then the final piece that I kind of wanted to throw out there was Elon Musk had this conversation with Benjamin Netanyahu a couple years ago, and they were talking about the future of AI. Netanyahu was interviewing Elon, and he asked Elon, so what's the end game? Where's AI going? And Elon explained that the end result of artificial intelligence is going to be one of two scenarios, neither of which I like. One is Terminator, where the robots take over and we're basically their slaves or non-existent, or we're in a constant battle against the robots. Or he claimed it would be heaven on earth, and so Netanyahu goes to Elon, so explain heaven on earth. What does that look like? What does the positive scenario look like? Yeah, exactly. He basically started describing the movie WALL-E that Pixar put out several years ago, which was basically the AI and robots will do all of our work. We become hedonistic, blobs of flesh that are just consuming everything. Our brains will be connected to the internet. We don't have to work, so we have universal basic income, which basically means that we become slaves of whoever controls this technology because we're completely dependent upon them for anything. So if we say something that's out of line or we do something, they could just cut us off. Why? Because we're completely 100% dependent upon them. Part of the point of having a job is you're self-dependent to where you don't have to rely on somebody else for your revenue, for your money, for providing for your family. But you take that away to where you're completely dependent upon not even our government, but a big tech oligarch. You're completely dependent upon them. That is terrifying, the kind of power that they're centralizing into these handful of guys. And you're just sitting here like, does nobody see the writing on the wall? And this isn't even just like a conspiracy theory. This is literally what these guys, they're telling us the end game that's going to happen in the next 10 years. And everybody's like, oh, that'll never happen. Okay, come on, guys, wake up. They're telling us out and out, this is the end game.
Yep. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're telling you, and this is the problem with society. Okay, we're complicit in our own demise. I could walk up to you right now, to a random person in the street and say, hey, because of what you posted on social media, tomorrow morning at exactly 9 a.m., somebody's going to knock on the door and blow your brains out. And you're like, okay, that's cool. All right, I would love to see that happen. Not realizing that I just agreed to my own death, and that's we became mechanized in that sense where we're robots ourselves, just going around just agreeing to everything that we hear because it sounds good without any analysis, without any thought process behind it, saying, "Wait a minute, oh hell no, we're not doing that." No one's doing that these days, and so we're just like here in Austin, for example. There's a restaurant. I love this restaurant. This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a ding at this restaurant. As a matter of fact, I encourage you to dine at this place if you're in Austin, Texas. It's called Space Cowboys, where there's a human being that greets you at the door. You get your seating. There's a human waiter that comes to take your order. However, when they come to bring your order, it's like a little carousel robot that comes on a rail car, a little rail system that's connected around the restaurant. So you have these little robots that's delivering your food to your table, and it's the coolest thing ever. I love it. It opens up and it says your meal has arrived, and it opens up and then you pull your stuff out and you enjoy your meal. So in a sense, that may have eliminated a waiter's job, or it was just reduced his or her task. So that's one way of looking at it. Now, on the flip side of that, to get to that restaurant, you could take what's called a Waymo. It's a driverless car, and you get in a car and there's nobody in the front seat. It's like, yeah, do I trust this? Am I gonna arrive alive, or am I gonna be unalive in the process of getting to this restaurant? So we're dealing with this, and these cars actually they drive very much like humans. You'll see one Waymo driving perfectly fine, and you see one that's driving very erratic, like they got somewhere to be type of thing. So they're very much humanized. I don't know if there's like somebody in a back office somewhere with a remote control car, remote controls directing these things, but they actually have human components it's like human personalities to the cars. So you're dealing with that. And then you're like, how do I navigate society now where nothing is real anymore? And what I mean by nothing is real is that you're living in the Jetsons. For those that are not old enough to remember the cartoon The Jetsons, we're kind of almost, we're like right there at it now. And so I don't know, I just want to get your thoughts on dealing with integrating those robots into our lives or I guess you say taking over our lives, taking over components of our lives. How do you feel?
I would say that. Yeah, but I would say like on the micro level, I get the integration with AI in specific situations. It's like you use AI to analyze data that you don't have time to pull in, or for research, or for it helps a lot of entrepreneurs to be able to streamline their work to where they can get stuff done, because they can't afford to hire somebody else to come on and do things. So they've got to there's a lot of entrepreneurs, they basically are doing the job of 5 people. I mean that's basically me. Is like I'm doing a lot of work as one person with Pickax. So I get the desire and the benefit of artificial intelligence being implemented and being used. The macro level is where I have severe concerns with this technology, because it's where is it going? One of the really big concerns that I have is that it's taking away the human element out of life, out of society, out of culture. Guys like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg are rolling out what they call AI companions, to where you can actually have a friend that's an AI robot. You could do that right now within Grok. Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg is already pitching to people that, look, you have a certain number of friends but you have capability for more friends. So maybe you don't have time to go out there and find some new friends. You go to a bar, you go to a restaurant, you go to your local hangout spot. You don't have time for that. So we're just going to make some new friends for you, and you have the capacity to build a relationship with these fake synthetic AI friends, and you're just sitting here like, okay, this is bonkers. This is nuts. What is going on here? Mm-hmm. But I think what they're actually doing, they're separating us. They're taking away that human-to-human interaction. And that's one of those things, too, that I'm thinking about as a CEO of a tech company, of a social media platform, of of how do we keep that human connection while still having a social media platform. And so like for us, it's we're not integrating with AI. Like we'll use AI for like specific tools maybe. So like for example, we use AI to recognize if sex or nudity is posted in a picture, to where we can stop that, and nip it in the bud without having to always be playing catch up. So we use it as a tool, but we're not implementing a chat bot. We're not allowing people to set up bot, accounts and things like that, because I want human to human interaction with people. And I think that's been one of the very refreshing things that we've seen on the platform already with the community that we're building is, no, everybody knows, no, if you're verified on the platform, that is not only just a human being, but that is who they say they are. So who you're actually talking to. Now you can build a relationship. We're also going to be developing some in-person events around the country. We're going to be doing like a tour. We're going to be doing all these different kinds of things where we can actually get people in our community together in a room, and you can actually make connections, build community, build friendships. You saw this person post on Pickax, and all of a sudden now you're hanging out with them at this event. It'll be cool. It's fun. And now you begin to have a relationship in a way that you don't get on a lot of these other platforms. So with me looking and thinking through all these things, I'm like, how do we become the most human-centered platform on the planet? How do we live in this new world of artificial intelligence where people are starving for friendships and relationships and connection, and the AI is giving you that quick dopamine hit because it's making you believe, oh yeah, no, I'm building friendships, I'm building relationships, but are you really? You're not really doing it. And so you're getting this fake, synthetic, sterile version of a human relationship, when in reality you could just have the real thing. And I think that's the way that I'm kind of looking at this.
That's awesome, and I love that idea, because I have seen that too. I believe it was Snapchat a few months ago. On my Snapchat, it was like, hey, I'm your AI companion. And I'm like, the fuck is this? So I was like, okay, I'm not use this. And it was like, it like actually popped in and it was like asking me stuff like, how's your day going? And I'm like, how do you turn this thing off? And so I found a feature where you can turn it off. I was like, thank God. It was like, that's annoying, because it was like sending me notifications, like asking me. I'm like, what is this? And so, yeah, I did not like that. But it was just nuts to me. I don't like this stuff at all. But to your point, I utilize it, a little bit for like quick research and to say, hey, give me a quick rundown of what this is, what this means, and prepping for shows and stuff like that. Something that I like never heard of. I'm like, okay, what is this? And tell me about it, and give me like a little expose. And I'm like, okay, cool, got it, and keep it moving. But that's all I can use it for. Let's jump into your book. Following the Leader. Congratulations on this production, and tell us about it and what inspired you to write this book.
Yeah, definitely. So honestly, there's a whole bunch of things that kind of contributed to the initial idea for writing it. So I've put together two previous group book projects before, Social Injustice and Church and State, and that's where I just got a bunch of different kind of Christian leaders and pastors and theologians together to talk about. The first one was on the social justice movement and Marxism. We looked at it from more of a theological standpoint, and the second book, Church and State, was more of exposing the strategy of how the left infiltrated into the evangelical church, and how we argued that the church was actually the last stand against socialism, Marxism, leftism, and that it's been infiltrated and hijacked. And so we basically, each chapter laid out exactly not just that they did it, but how they did it. And so in one of the chapters that I wrote for these books, it was about the evangelical cult of personality, and how a lot of people are being misled by their favorite megachurch pastor, because they're using cult tactics in order to get you to buy their books, go to their conferences, go to their church, listen to their streaming sermons, and all that kind of stuff. And like I've seen the dirty, dark underbelly of the evangelical world. It's extremely corrupt. I would argue that it might even rival that of politics, with just how corrupt the evangelical world can be. And so for me, I wrote that chapter, and it was about like how basically the Apostle Paul when he was writing, I believe it was to the Corinthians, he was like, stop identifying yourself with me or with Peter or with this other apostle Like, we're just tools being used by God. You're supposed to be following God. You're supposed to be following after him and following, his word, not identify yourself with me. Your identity is in Christ. And Paul talked about this, and so I kind of brought this to the attention of the evangelical world. Stop identifying with your favorite pastor. Like, they're not God; they're just a tool. Like, identify with Christ. Then with this book, Following the Leader, I saw a lot of the same tendencies being used in the political world. So politicians are using a lot of these same tactics in order to get people to fall in line, vote the way they want them to vote, do what they want them to do, organize, and all of that. And and again, this happens with the cult of personality with somebody like Donald Trump. It happens with RFK Jr. It happens with Obama. It happens across the spectrum. This isn't just a leftist thing. This is happening everywhere. Yeah. And so you look at, like, for example, you look at President Trump. There are people, and again, I voted for the guy. So this isn't a condemnation of him necessarily, but it comes down to the rationale behind it, right? So I voted for Trump, and I supported him when he came down that escalator because I felt like his worldview was most closely aligned with mine. So then I supported him. But it started with I figured out what is my worldview, and then I support the people that are most closely aligned with that worldview. Exactly. What's happening right now is you're seeing a lot of people, they find their identity in Donald Trump or Kennedy or fill in the blank, and then they will then change their worldview to fit in with that person's worldview. Yeah. And I'm like, but do you really believe that? Because just last week you were saying something completely different. And I think a perfect example of this is the constant continuing resolutions that keep getting passed over and over and over again. Both sides of the aisle are passing these continuing resolutions, and then whenever the other side is in charge, we oppose it. We've got to pass a budget. We've got to do this. And then when our side gets into power, we got to kick the can down the road. We need more time to prepare this. We need to do this. It's like both sides. It's two sides of the same coin, and this happens over and over and over again. So as I was doing research in this book, and this is where it started getting really crazy, I started looking at the cults themselves. So things like Scientology, groups like Jim Jones, a lot of these different cults, and Charles Manson even. And you start looking at this, and a lot of them, not all, but a lot of them actually had direct ties with intelligence agencies. You're like, okay, what's going on there? And so you start looking at this, and you're like, okay. And so I posited the theory, and I'm assuming that it's probably true because all the circumstantial evidence points to this. But I'm guessing that a lot of these cults were actually testing grounds for a lot of these MK Ultra type programs. I was waiting for you to say it. Because I mean, think about this. It's like, it would be the perfect testing ground to be able to sit there and say, okay, how do we get, because all these people that they get sucked into cults, they're normal people, like everyday people. How do you get a normal everyday person to go commit heinous crimes? How do you get a normal everyday person to believe insane things like, for example, like Scientology believes that the aliens drop into the Pacific Ocean, they crawl up onto the beach, and then they indwell into Scientologists, and that's why they're based primarily in Los Angeles, is because where they drop into the Pacific Ocean. And you're just sitting here, you're like, okay, that sounds a little bonkers. They don't tell you that when they're standing out on the street telling you, do you want to come in and do our auditing test right now? No, they build up to it. So they do these certain kinds of cult tactics to get you to buy into a basic thing first. Then they move on to the next one, and then the next one, until finally you believe that aliens are possessing you and they're dropping into the Pacific Ocean and coming up on the beach. And, and you're just sitting here like, this is nuts. How did this happen? Well, to me, it was almost like a test on, okay, how do we get normal everyday people to believe and do insane things? And then now, COVID and then everything after, now we're seeing the results of that. Now we're seeing them implement this on a mass scale, where, it's like truth no longer matters because they've already propagandized you. They've already brainwashed you. So what I want people to do is I want people to take a step back and figure out, what do I believe? Yep. Why do I believe it? And do I actually know that this is true, or am I just repeating what somebody else told me and propagandized me to believe? You could be correct in your belief, but kind of in this cult mentality because you're not actually figuring out why you believe it. You're just repeating, talking what somebody else told you. So that's a long explanation on, what's behind the book.
No, that's great. No, that's great. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I actually absolutely agree with that. And I was waiting. You was talking about cults and everything, and the ideologies and the mythologies behind it. I was like, he's going to talk about MK Ultra. Get there. Yes, there we go. Because you're absolutely right. It is.
Oh yeah.
It is a. I guess you could say a branch off or maybe a component of the MK Ultra program by the CIA and the FBI, COINTELPRO apparatus, and so a lot of people don't understand that world. Military background, dealt with it all the time. Operation Mockingbird, with the media, we see that bleeding into the social media domains, and so there's a lot of components that are governmental driven that we get sucked into and we become complicit with it, or we use it for our own nefarious purposes and what have you, as you mentioned, like Charles Manson and Jim Jones and so on and so forth. Tom Cruise, the Scientology, but yeah, all this stuff is we see these things, we know these things, but we become complicit. We become I guess you say what's the word I'm looking for? Desensitized to it all, and we just, well, it doesn't affect me, or what's the big deal? It's okay. It's not whatever. It's gonna pass in time, and we accept these things into our lives, and here we are. We're screwed up now. We're a screwed up society, and we can't even determine what should be free speech and what shouldn't be. We can't determine if a male could get pregnant or not. We can't determine what is a female. We're in bizarre world right now. I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. But Jeff, I'm gonna let you go, sir. Tell people, share any final thoughts you have, and tell people where they can follow you and support you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that kind of just to kind of recapping what both you and I were just talking about. I think it's important to understand that, like, guys like Charlie Kirk. It's really interesting because what he did was exactly kind of what we're talking about. Is he was forcing college kids to actually rationalize their thoughts and figure out what do I believe. And if you listen to him, yes, he was very closely aligned with President Trump and all of that. But his worldview wasn't based on Donald Trump. His worldview was based on what he believed, and that he was forcing kids to actually think through, okay, not only what do I believe, but why do I believe it? Rationalize your opinion, rationalize your position, explain yourself, and all that. And we need more of that. We need less just trying to own the other side and destroy the other side, and more conversations and discussions and debates and challenge your friends and family. I've had so many conversations with lefty friends out here in California where, like, literally all I do is I just ask them questions. I force them to rationalize their opinions. I've gotten so many people to change their minds on a variety of issues just by forcing them to actually sit down and rationalize their beliefs and their positions. So I highly encourage you guys to think about things from that perspective, and use Charlie Kirk's model as a model for actually doing that. So I highly encourage you guys to do that. You guys can check out Pickax. You guys go to pickax.com. You guys can sign up, set up an account, get a completely constitution protected free speech social media platform. We're trying to amplify make it a very human centered platform. We've got Children's Health Defense on there, the Vigilant Fox. We've got Ann Vandersteel, Red Pill 78, SGT Report, a bunch of amazing people that are already over there on the platform that you guys can follow. So make sure you guys are doing that. But hey, I truly appreciate you allowing me to come on. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, same here. Thank you so much for being here. Yes, this was an awesome conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I look forward to having you back on again anytime. Anytime you want to get bored or there's something hot you want to talk about, put out. Hey, more than welcome. Hit me up. We can make it happen, sir. I appreciate you.
Sounds good.
Yes, appreciate you. Take care, and God bless. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Jeff Dornik. Hey, great conversation. Look, go check out Pickax platform, set up an account. You'll probably enjoy it if you really, truly want to have engage in a space of free speech, have those open debates, open air debates and stuff like that. If there's something you enjoy doing, you can integrate your Rumble account if you have one. Hey, have fun with it, and do your thing. And I'm gonna jump up out of here, and also check out his book, Follow the Leader. You can pre-order that. And from there, ladies and gentlemen, I will holler at y'all later. See y'all next week sometime. Be safe. God bless. And ciao, ciao. I hope you enjoyed today's program. You can follow, like, share, subscribe on Spotify, Substack, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and your news. And also, you can download Let the Truth Be Told app on your favorite streaming platforms, such as Fire Stick, Apple TV, and Roku. Take care. God bless.